In this video, we're going to learn about if-else statements in Python. The concept is really simple. So in Python, there are different ways to control the flow of a program. The if-else statement is one of them, and it greatly helps us in decision making. So since it's really straightforward, you will understand how to use it immediately. Now let me open up a Python interpreter shell and show you exactly what I'm talking about. So let's say if 3 is greater than 2, then print hey there, and I'm gonna execute this. So since 3 is greater than 2, we can see our statement being executed here, our print statement being executed. Now notice the indentation here. So it's like 4 spaces indented. So this is indented 4 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Remember, I told you about the difference between the code editor and the interpreter shell. Now it makes sense to use the code editor because when dealing with statements such as if-else, we usually have code spread over multiple lines. So I'm going to fire up Visual Studio Code here. Okay, so when we do if-else statements, they can be as simple as if this, then do that. Or they can include an else statement too. So if this, do that, else do that. Or if you have multiple conditions, you can use the elif statement, which is the shorthand for else if. So elif. So we can have if this, then do that, elif this, then do that, elif this, then do that. And you can choose whatever or not to have an else statement here. So you can have as many elif statements as you want. Now an else statement would execute when no other condition is met. So let's actually write a simple program. This was just a pseudocode. Let's actually write a simple program to include them also. Let's first define some variables. A equals to 25, B equals to 17. So these are all integers, and C equals to, let's say, -4. All right, so now playing with the if-else statements, we'll say if A smaller than B or B greater than C, let's say print, and since notice that when I press enter here, it actually puts me where I need to be. This is also indented 4 spaces, because if I would just start the statement someplace over here, let's say 3 spaces indentation, the program will actually throw an error, an indentation error. So if A smaller than B or B greater than C, let's say print A is smaller than B, capital B, or B is greater than C. Okay, so notice that here we used an OR to further refine our statement. And if we execute this, so let me actually save this and then go back to the command prompt and actually navigate to the folder. So from the folder, I can execute this if-else.py with Python if-else.py. So in this case, if A smaller than B or B greater than C, we should have a print A smaller than B or B is greater than C. But A is not smaller than B and B is greater than C. So we will see a print statement. A is more than B or B is greater than C, because at least one of the conditions inside this if is valid. All right, but if I say if A is smaller than B, and so instead of or I would use an and, B is greater than C, this actually tells us that both of these have to be true for the print statement to be executed. So in this case, only one of them is true. So we won't have any print statement. So if I save this with Control S and then run it one more time, we will see that there is actually no print over here. Okay, so if we add an else statement, so if that condition, we could also say else print no condition was executed. So in this case, since no condition holds true, we'll go to the else statement. So like I said, we use the else statement to actually control for all other possible scenarios that are not included in the if or else statements above. So if I save this and run it one more time over here, we will see the print no condition was executed. I also mentioned the else statements, which, like I said, stand for else if. So let's add a few of them. So if A is smaller than B and B is greater than C, we print this. And then let's say else if B greater than A, let's say print B is greater than A. And let's add another one. So else if C is smaller than B, print C is smaller than B. Okay, and finally we have the else statement. So in this case, else if B is greater than A, that's not true. Else if C is smaller than B, that's true. So in this case, Python will go through each one, and when it finds a true statement, it will execute whatever is requested there. So in our case, the first one, like I said, is not true. The second one is not true either, but the third one, this one, C is smaller than B, this is true, so that's going to be printed. So once again, we save it with Control S and then run it one more time, and we can see C is smaller than B. It is important to point out that if we add another true statement after this valid else statement, it will not execute. So if I say here else if A greater than B, which is true, we'll say print A is greater than B. If we save this and then go back and run it one more time, we can see C is smaller than B. So the program stops at the first valid one. However, if we start another if statement saying instead of elif, we'll just say here if A greater than B, so this will actually execute both of these. So C is smaller than B, and also this one, A is greater than B, because as soon as you add another if statement, you have the previous if statement finished. So we have as many ifs as we want, but if we add another if, then we are inside another if statement. So these are actually two distinct if statements, and both of them will be printed. From this one, else C is smaller than B is the valid one, and from this one, when the program starts and checks for this condition, it says that it can see that it's true, and it's actually going to print A is greater than B. So we will see C is smaller than B and A is greater than B. So C is smaller than B and A is greater than B. So to recapitulate, you can have simple if else statements like if, this, do that. Or you can have if-else statements, if this, do that, else, do that. And you can also use elif as many times as you want. So you can have if this, do that, elif this, do that, elif this, do that. Let's add another one, elif this, do that. And it's not necessary to use an else statement, but I would recommend it because it's one way of controlling the program if no condition is met. And that is actually the if-else statement in a nutshell. Of course, you can make the decision making much more complex having nested if-else statements. So this would actually mean an if-else inside an if-else statement. So if this, if this, print this, or actually do this, else do this, and then go back to the main one, else do this. So these would actually be nested elif statements. My scope with this lesson, however, was to get you through the basics. So if you understand the basics, getting into more complex topics will be much easier. Now in the resources document, so let me delete this because this is actually pseudocode and not real code. So in the resources document that comes along with this video, I've given you a few mandatory readings that will allow you to consolidate these basics, and which will also exemplify the more complex if-else statements that I have not discussed. Now, reading them is really important for your successful completion of the course. All right, that's all for today. I will see you in the next lesson.